Hello and welcome, everyone. I am Lisa Warner. I am the author of The Simplicity of Self-Healing, and I am here with Deanna Hansen, the founder of Block Therapy. So
Hello.
I know that's a new term for many of you. So Deanna, let's introduce Block Therapy.
Okay. Thank you so much, Lisa. I'm so honored and thrilled to be here sharing with your community. So I have been developing this fascia-based system now for 20 years, block therapy specifically for about the last 10 years. So basically 20 years ago, I had been already an athletic therapist for about 5 years. And I had a really good practice with patients. I always focused on deep tissue work. Even though I had a really good practice and I was helping a lot of people, I was personally struggling. I was 50 pounds overweight. As an athletic therapist, of course, I was doing everything that I was taught to do with the exercise and we'll call it dieting for lack of a better word right now. And the harder that I worked and pushed my body, the worse things got. So by the age of 30, I made some major changes in my life, which were necessary and amazing. But the result of those changes led me into having these severe anxiety attacks. And it was this one anxiety attack in particular that was the seed of everything to come for me. Because in that moment, I didn't actually know if I could breathe. I actually thought I was going to die. That's how traumatic these anxiety attacks were. So for some reason, I intuitively dove my hand into my abdomen. Now, this was an area that I never touched on my own body because this is where I really carried most of my weight, nor did I ever let anyone else come near me in that area because I was so self-conscious of it. But that moment was amazing because as soon as I put my hand into my abdomen, the first thing that I felt was pain, which I didn't even really know existed there because I'd always avoided it. But also in that moment, I felt what felt like scar tissue marbled through my tissue even though I hadn't had injury or surgery in that area. So that first moment was really enlightening for me because the first thing, the pain brought me down out of my anxiety. It brought me back to the ground. I knew I was breathing and I was gonna live at least another day. But more importantly, as I kept working in the tissue and feeling this scar tissue, I was having all of these aha moments. Like, no wonder when I'm coming back from a 5-mile run, dripping wet with sweat, my belly would still feel cold. So I thought, well, how am I ever going to metabolize this tissue if there's never any blood and oxygen flow getting to it? So also around that same time, I had started the practice of Iyengar yoga, and I was very fortunate that the very first teacher that I had was really good at reminding us to breathe, probably like every 30 seconds in a posture. And I thought, wow, every time she's reminding us to breathe, I'm holding my breath. And if I am, probably most people are as well. So this all became just that initial first understanding of what was happening. So after that first day, I spent probably 45 minutes or so just intuitively working in my belly. And I hadn't felt that calm in a very long time. And I woke up the next day a little bit tender from the work, but I was working on my patients the next day. And I felt really calm. And I was super excited to get back home that night and continue the exploration. So after the second night of just, again, kind of working my way in my own tissue, when I stood up, I felt really different. I felt taller. And I went to the mirror and I looked at myself and I immediately began to cry because my belly was flatter than it had looked in years. And I mean, I was doing 400 sit-ups a day, Tai Bo, aerobics. Like I was really pushing myself, working really hard to try to create changes. And all that happened was my body kept getting harder, but not in the good way, not in the, the idea of like the six-pack, like hard body. It was literally compressed and hard. So the harder I worked, the worse I got. So within 2 days of just doing this intuitive exploration, my body had changed remarkably. So that became my new addiction, for a lack of a better word. And within 2 weeks, my chronic low back pain was going away. And I started flipping my patients onto their backs. And very quickly, I started having phenomenal results with my patients. So that was the seed of everything to come. But my real goal was always to teach people self-care. And in the beginning, I did try teaching people how to use their hands on their own bodies like I was doing, but there's some limiting factors to that. I needed a tool. So it was about a decade or so ago that, again, it was a very organic process, but it was when block therapy literally came to be. And really, it's all about using the tool to replace the hands and then guiding people properly on the tool with their breath so that they can move through those layers of adhesions that have been built up in the fascia over time that hold us out of alignment. So the fascia is the tissue that we target, and it connects every single cell from head to toe. And this is really what needs to be understood so that we can be really efficient with our healing, because there's cause sites and pain sites. So the goal is that we can look at a body and we can identify what's really pulling on what, and how is that causing the issues up the chain, so that we can provide a really systematic, efficient process to getting people to realign their cells. And as long as cells are properly fed and clean and spacious, which is part of what block therapy is all about, then they receive blood and oxygen flow and they keep clean. And ultimately, cells in that state don't share symptoms because they're happy and relaxed.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's all about alignment, isn't it? You know, we are body, mind, and soul. And when those three things are out of alignment, bad things happen in our lives and to our bodies. But when we can bring all of those pieces and parts back into alignment, it's amazing.
And there's really three pillars to block therapy. So the first one is all about the creating space that we've lost over time in our bodies, because gravity's constantly pulling us down. We get shorter and wider as we get older, and we don't get pulled down in a linear way. We wind down in a forward directional way over time. And those adhesions are what hold us in those negative alignments, and they can grip onto bone with a force of up to 2,000 pounds per square inch, which is an incredible force if you actually think about that. And what it's doing is it literally is pulling the cells away from their natural home. So that's the first pillar. And then the second one is really teaching people to understand proper diaphragmatic breathing. And the diaphragm muscle is the foundation to the rib cage. And when it's working properly, it's moving up and down in the core like a pump. And it's the constant continual motion of this muscle that keeps the organs heated, keeps the flow optimal so that they can do their job for us. If we're not conscious breathers, what ultimately happens is the weight of the rib cage, head, arms, hands causes a collapse of our upper body into the core, which causes a displacement of those organs. And if we're not using that muscle to breathe because we're breathing from the muscles of the upper chest, then the foundation becomes weak and the organs get squished and displaced, so they can't function optimally. And then the third part is the foundation piece, understanding how to maintain the space that we have now created so that we don't continue to get pulled away from that proper alignment.
Ah, that's beautiful. And it's really analogous to what I teach as far as, you know, breathing it's the breath of life. It's the connection to the soul. You know, it's the soul that breathes the breath. And when we are consciously breathing, we are consciously connecting to that, to our inner guidance, our soul. And, you know, maintaining our own personal space on an energy level is so crucial, because we take on so many other people's energy into our space, all of the fear, the collective chaos, you know, all of the things that we take on as beings start to compress us and collapse us. So all of these parts and pieces work beautifully together to start to open up the space, not only just our personal space and our energy space, and to clear out our energy, but also to clear out all of the toxins from our body. We're clearing the toxic energy from our space and the toxins from our cells. It's a beautiful practice.
Thank you. And it is such a beautiful compliment to what you do. I always refer to the fascia as being like a sponge. So we have absorbed whatever environments we've been a part of through our entire lives. And ultimately, if we haven't been using, in my opinion, the full proper exhalation to continue to pump out what we pull in, then it starts to add up and add up and add up. And what's really interesting is, like for you and I, when we were babies, we were born breathing diaphragmatically, and then pain, fear, and stress over time cause us to reactively hold the breath. And then we start breathing with these secondary muscles if we are not conscious breathers. The challenge today that I'm really seeing is babies are coming out very differently. They're not breathing the same because the mothers of today, let's say they're 35 or younger, who grew up in front of technology, they're coming from a place of collapse already from that computer posture. So they don't have the same amount of space in their abdomen to grow a healthy baby, as well as the child is going to come out with the breathing pattern of the parent. And because we are living in a very, very stressful time, a stressful world in general. I mean, stress has always been around, but the breathing habit or pattern of the mother is different than when you and I were younger. And that's what the babies are coming out with today, combined with all of the other assaults that they're being put on their systems. And it's very important right now that we address these babies and these young kids so that we can really spark their proper breath so that they can grow and develop in a healthy way as well.
That's beautiful. And so it's really important for the parents to understand this so that they can help their children with this. Because if they're
Yes.
not aware of this, then they can't pass this on to the kids. So this is so important. And block therapy is an amazing tool. You know, when I started, actually, I got my block quite a while ago, and I tried it by osmosis for a while, and it didn't work as well as I thought it would. I found I actually had to lay on it and really use it.
I think a lot of people go through that process.
Right, exactly. It's like we look at the blog, it's like, yeah, okay, you know, I'm sure it's good, but yeah. But once I start actually utilizing the block on a daily basis, the changes were, you know, exponential, phenomenal. It was, you know, the pain in my body went away, the bloating started to leave, you know, the posture started to change. It was quite phenomenal. And of course, now it's a daily practice where, you know, here I am sitting with my block behind me in my chair, working on my posture.
Well, and can I just share, like, I mean, we're doing assessments, right? And your before and after photos from one cycle of time, which would have been around a month or so,
21
they
days.
were mind blowing. I couldn't believe the change in your body. I mean, some people change really, really fast and rapidly. Other people, it's a little slower depending on their body and what we're starting with. But when I saw your first set of follow-up photos, I was, I was, I was shocked. I mean, how many inches had your waist changed?
Oh, like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, in like 21 days. It was
Yeah.
crazy.
That is pretty crazy. I was thrilled to see that. And your expression on your face was priceless, I just have to say.
Oh, yes, my photographer. Oh. It's like, oh no. Really? That's the photo you took? Thanks.
Yeah. So once you start heating up the body, that's when really you see these amazing benefits. And really it does come down to tissue temperature, because we need to have our systems flowing. And for me, I've had the opportunity of living in Winnipeg my whole life, where of course we have, you know, such extremes. We have deep freeze in the winter, and then it gets to be like, you know, so hot in the summer. So I live right on top of a river, and I have watched the river freeze and thaw over the years. And it's so interesting because our physical bodies are very similar. And I often say, like, you know, in the winter, you have to start your car 20, 30 minutes before if it's a really, really cold day. And that's kind of like the body. We don't recognize that if we're not conscious diaphragmatic breathers, our systems are cold. They're in a deep freeze as it is. But once we start working the breath and we turn that into the habit, the body wants to breathe that way, first of all. It's how we were born to breathe. We've just lost that because, again, pain, fear, and stress cause us to reactively hold the breath. So that has become the habit. But once we make conscious diaphragmatic breathing our habit again, then we keep our systems heated all the time. So then we don't have to go through that same process of starting the car, you know, so much before you want to drive it. And that's really where, you know, we can prevent a lot of injury and things, because if our cells are getting what they need through proper flow, then they're going to function for us. Also, another piece that's really nice about this system is the information you learn on the tool when you're going through it, like exhaling properly, exhaling safely through the movement with the pain. You start to bring that into what you're doing in general in life. So for example, a lot of people end up hurting their backs because they try to lift something too heavy. They hold their breath to try to get that little extra bit of something to lift, and then their back goes out. When we start to learn how to move with the breath, we keep our body safe, because as long as we're breathing, our cells are getting properly fed and clean. It's when we stop breathing or we breathe really shallow that we're putting our body in a situation where it's more susceptible to injury. So from a prevention perspective as well, having your system heated is really the key to keeping your fascia healthy.
Beautiful. And that breath is so important for releasing the trapped emotions. When I was going through my anxiety attacks, it was terrifying. It was just debilitating. It would literally lock me in place, until one day I realized, wait a minute, this is energy, and I can move energy with my breath. And if I use my breath and intention, I can literally transmute this anxiety in the moment. And when I started doing that, the anxiety attacks went away, because all I did was I started breathing through them and using my intention to release. So it's so important. We get so trapped by our emotions, by our fear, that we start to freeze in place, and then just everything locks down and it spirals, just like you were talking about with the fascia, just spirals all out of alignment. So
and I mean, that for me was like, anxiety was one of the more in my face issues that I was dealing with, that just really took away the joy of life. And what I've come to understand now, because I used to say I have anxiety, I don't actually do that anymore. Now what I recognize is, if I'm feeling anxious, it's because my cells aren't getting what they need to do their job. So they're giving me information. And once we start to understand the difference as well, that whether it's pain, whether it's restless leg syndrome, like whatever the physical sensation that we're feeling, it's really the language of the cell giving us information, saying like, hey mom, you're asking me to garden all day and you're starving me, and now I'm frustrated and stressed. So that's the anxiety piece or the pain piece. And when we can really almost take ourselves away from feeling like it is who we are, then we can look at it and say, okay, here I'm feeling certain things, but that doesn't mean that I have to identify that that's part of my life. It's a moment in time. And as you mentioned with the breath, you do have control to change the situation that you're in through conscious awareness.
Absolutely. And that's so important, is to never own these things, never say I have this, or it's my cancer, my anxiety. It's like, no, it's not. If you don't want it, don't own it.
That was a huge lesson for me too with my patient work, because for years I was working 8 hours a day on patients, pulling their energy in through my hands. And honestly, it really probably wasn't until COVID started, and because that would have been the first time in 25 years that I hadn't done patient work to the level that I used to. So suddenly I'm simply not. And I'm like, wow, am I ever calm? And it was like, I don't even think that most of the anxiety and the issues that I felt a lot of the time were mine, because I pulled it in so much. And because that was how I spent so much of my day. Now that I don't see patients that much at all, such a difference. So just something to be aware of, that we do pull in so much of whatever else is going on around us, and to just be really cognizant of that, so that we can separate what is really my stuff and what is other people's stuff that we're simply absorbing because we live with them, or we're working on them, or we're even watching some kind of a movie or TV or listening to music. Like that all comes in and it still affects us and our energy. And it's important to understand that frequency that we're surrounding ourselves with.
Absolutely. We always think that just because we feel something or we think something, that those are our feelings or our thoughts. And for the majority of for all of the stuff that doesn't feel good, that's the key sign. It's not your stuff. It doesn't belong. Body giving direct feedback, like, hey, there's something here that doesn't belong to you.
So what's your process with teaching people how to guide people through their energy issues and anxiety issues?
So, I mean, very similar to many of the things that you've just been talking about. First of all, to realize that our bodies speak in symptoms. They don't speak in English, French, and German. So they speak in sensations. And normally, as soon as our body feels the slightest bit uncomfortable, we just go, uh-oh, something's wrong with my body. Something's wrong. What's wrong with me? But it's simply feedback. So when it's uncomfortable, we have to learn to interpret that feedback so that we can address what's actually the issue, whatever that energy is that we've taken on that doesn't belong to us. As I talk about it like a pebble in the shoe. If we're walking down the street and we get a pebble in the shoe, the body's going to go, ouch, and it's going to send us some feedback. And if we don't take that pebble out and we just keep walking, the body's going to do something to protect itself against that pebble. It's going to form a blister. So it's taking proactive measures to protect itself. But when we don't realize that we've got these pebbles in our shoe of shame, blame, guilt, fear, if we don't address those, the body does something proactive to counteract the thing that doesn't belong in our energy field. So every sensation in our body is feedback. So it's super important to make friends with the pain, which is the most beautiful thing about block. One of the most beautiful things I think about block therapy is that it really helps us to reframe that pain sensation in the body. Because as we're looking to melt the fascia, we're looking for that pain. We're seeking it out because we realize that that's where the problem is. So if we just simply lay on that block with that pain and breathe, we melt that fascia and we move that problem out of ourselves. So having that awareness of what belongs to me and what doesn't belong to me, and oh, my body's actually giving me feedback. Let me listen instead of being afraid of our bodies. It's so important.
That's a great explanation. Thank you. And what I also really appreciate is some people, because they have such a fear around pain, if you've had chronic pain for years of your life, it's understandable that you have this fear around it. So some people are afraid to move into their pain on purpose. But what I always share with people, you're not adding pain by getting onto the block. You're making yourself aware of the pain that lies deeper than what you are consciously aware of, so that you can bring it up to the surface and then exhale it out of the body, so that you can then dive deeper and find the other layers, because there's layers and layers. And I think for a lot of people too, as you mentioned, the pebble, if we catch things right away, it's simple, because it's like, here's something happening and then we address it. But the reality is most people starting, they have layers and layers and layers of chronic pain and trauma and issues all chaotically wrapped into their bodies when we start. So how does one, start with that process and that journey to start going through those layers? But that's where the system makes it really simple, because we do address the fascia head to toe as a whole system. So through the process, you get to those cause sites and you start moving deeper and deeper and deeper. And one of the things I love the most, I'm 20 years into this journey, and I've come an incredibly long way, but I still have so far to go. And I love that there's never an end to self-improvement, to self-care. It's not like, okay, I'm going to do a 21-day program and then I'm good. It's like, no, this is a lifestyle, like anything, healthy eating. It's the same as the concept of dieting. Like you can't just, do so, because I used to do that. I'd be like, okay, I want to do this, so I'm going to eat this for whatever, and then I'm going to stop and go back to where I was. And it's like, okay, it doesn't work. I mean, eat healthy in general, and then your body can handle those moments when you don't. So same with the blocking. If we can keep our body aligned and we can keep our breath strong, when we do have those moments when maybe we aren't being as conscious about self-care, we're not far away from getting back to that place of moving forward. So we just simply become more efficient as time goes on, and the gifts never end, which is such a lovely piece of this.
Absolutely. And just like we take care of our bodies on a daily basis, if we learn how to take care of our energy bodies on a daily basis, to clear out those energies that we have taken on, to learn a process to start clearing those out, So, we're always taught to, take your shower every day, brush your teeth every day, but we're not taught to clear out your energy field on a daily basis. So
Right.
that's one of the most important things that I feel that I work with my clients on, is to start noticing the energies and start clearing those pebbles out of the shoe before they cause the big blister in the body where we're going, oh my gosh, what just happened?
Exactly.
Beautiful. Well, I think this has been a great conversation to start opening people's eyes to all the possibilities for great, amazing health that we have. And it doesn't have to be difficult. That's the whole theme is simple. Something as simple as a block of wood can be the most profound tool for transformation. Something
And you
as
can move
simple.
in bed. That's the part that's so lovely too, because a lot of people, they might think, well, I can't get on a floor because I can't get up off of a floor, but this work can be done in a bed. It can be done sitting on a chair, as you're doing right now.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that you can lie down and do the work. I like that, not lazy, but different approach, because like me in my past, it was hard work and force, which didn't take me into any place but, more disharmony in my own body. So it's about kindness to ourselves. It takes effort and it takes discipline, but it doesn't have to be hard. And it's about being kind and respecting the limits, as opposed to pushing through those limits and, getting to that mindset where we're damaging ourselves when we move past what we can do with a relaxed breath. So that's really what this is about. It's loving yourself, loving yourselves, and getting back to flow.
Absolutely. I love that. So everything really is so simple. We've made everything so difficult for ourselves as humans, but it really does. It comes back to simplicity, and everything that we need to maintain our health and well-being, we already have right within our own resources. Simple things that are provided by nature, like a beautiful block of wood that we can use as a simple tool, and then our breath that we already have, and our intention that is so incredibly powerful. So.
Wow, thank you, Lisa. That was, again, beautifully put. And thank you so much for having me on this discussion. I just absolutely love talking with people and learning all the other things that are going on, so we can really come together as a community to help people all over the world. Because when we're talking about health, there's a whole bunch of approaches that we need to put together and combine in order to really live the most healthy version that we can. And I'm just really appreciative that you found me and that we've now found each other, and we can continue moving forward with this.
Yes, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure speaking with you, and thank you so much for all of your guidance. And I look forward to having more discussions, because I think these kinds of things can be very helpful to people.
I agree.
Yeah, great. So we'll put some links below this, so that anybody that is interested in block therapy, you can click on the link and go and find out more information. And anybody that would like to know anything more about the simplicity of self-healing, we'll put some links in there as well. So thank
Wonderful.
you all so much for your time. Thank you, Deanna, and thank you everybody for listening today. So until next time, create for yourselves a great day. Thanks so
Bye,
much,
everyone.
everyone.